If you're getting to the end of every week feeling like you've achieved nothing, like you've just spent 5 days putting out fires and the big stuff in your consultancy hasn't moved an inch, this episode is for you. Hi, my name's Josh. I spent 10 years as a director and shareholder of a 3 million engineering consultancy that we grew to a 30 million multidisciplinary firm across engineering, town planning, surveying and architecture. And one of the honestly biggest breakthroughs that we had, and one that we now see our clients having all the time, isn't some new big fancy strategy, it's installing a weekly rhythm into their consultancy. So today I want to walk you through why you feel so reactive all the time, how urgency keeps stealing your weekly strategic time, and most importantly, how to design and lock in a weekly cadence that keeps you moving the needle on what actually matters. So let's get into it. All right, so let's get into this, team. The first thing I want to talk to you about is these reactive weeks that we're talking about. They don't happen by accident. You're actually allowing them because, the real reason, you get to Friday, you get to 4 p.m. on Friday and you feel like you've achieved nothing and you just run around with your tail on fire is because, you're acting like a business owner, or your the default mentality is whoever or whatever shows up first, gets the attention. So it's like, you haven't properly designed out your weeks. And we're going to talk about that towards the end of today's potty, but you haven't designed out your weeks. And what's happening is the urgent always beats the important. Like, don't get me wrong, like most consultancy owners start the week with amazing intentions to get big picture stuff done, but they've got no real plan for where their time is going. So like I said, the default just becomes, whoever or whatever screams the loudest or shouts the loudest just gets your attention. And what we find is, after coaching, 150 plus business owners, is where there are no fixed times in your calendar each week for leadership, for BD, for strategic thinking, team development. If there's no allocated time for that, like those things just don't get prioritized. They get pushed to the side. They get pushed to quote unquote when things quieten down. Which, as you and I know, never actually happens. So what happens is you get to Monday, you've got all these best intentions for going, yep, I've been thinking over the weekend, I want to move that strategic initiative forward, I want to move that big picture thing forward. You get to Monday, all these best intentions, but you just move into reactive mode. Like your calendar fills up super quickly, clients put things in place, team continue to interrupt you all the time, internal questions from the team, project stuff gets pushed into the calendar, and you just spend the whole week juggling, and there's no locked in space for big picture time. And you look up at 4 o'clock on Friday afternoon and you're just like, where did the week go? Like I feel like I've just been running around like an idiot, and I haven't got any big picture stuff done. So what I also want to highlight is like urgency, the urgent things, clients screaming at you, team screaming at you, things to get done. Urgency feels productive. Like it feels like you're always on, you're always moving, you're always like in action, moving stuff forward. And that's the trap, that's the problem, because responding to these urgent things, and don't get me wrong, there are some things when you've got machinery on site that are, there's a design out or something like that, that's urgent. But responding to things that just pop up throughout your day feels like progress to you because you're busy, you're moving around, you're active, you're doing things. And that's the trap, because busy and productive are not the same thing. So if you haven't protected time in your week, and again, we'll talk about this in a second about how to do that, but if you haven't protected time in your week for the work that actually matters and actually grows your business, the high value, high dollar activities, no one else is going to do it for you. You need to do it. So if you haven't actually blocked out that time, you're not moving the big picture things forward. So if you're nodding your head along right now and agreeing with me, I just want you to ask yourself this, like, is your week designed out, or is it just happening to you? Because there's a big difference between a consultancy owner who runs their week and an owner whose week runs them. All right, team, second thing I want to talk to you about is this concept of being available for everything is keeping you stuck in everything. So a lot of consultancy owners that we coach have this belief that they need to be constantly accessible and constantly responsive to clients, to team, to external providers to just keeping things moving. And they have this belief that always being available and constantly accessible is what keeps a good business running. But it's actually what keeps a good business stuck. Because most consultancy owners that we work with and I see in the industry have, unconsciously, without realizing it, trained their team and trained their clients to expect them to be available for everything. And so you've trained them to expect that, and now you feel like you can't step back without something falling over. Like you've actually, because you're available for everything, you're actually stuck in everything, you're available for every problem, and now because you're available and required for everything in the business, you feel like you can't step back without something falling apart or falling over. So when you're always in reactive mode, when you're always rushing, when you're always moving around, you become the bottleneck, because every decision, every question from the team, every problem from a client or a project, it all funnels through you. And that's not real business leadership. That's just actually a dependency problem. Like we've trained the team and trained our clients to be completely dependent on you. And consequently, like the work that actually moves your business forward, like the BD conversations with big picture strategic clients, looking at your pipeline 3 to 6 months time, what's coming through or not coming through, and do you need to take action on it? Your business plan, all those sorts of things. That work is not something that you can just fit in a 10-minute gap in between meetings. That big picture work requires headspace. It requires unended, lots of time in your calendar, and that headspace requires protected time in your calendar. So most owners tell themselves that they'll get to the strategic time when things get quieter or things slow down, or I'll look at my business plan just after this project's done, or once I've onboarded this team member, I'll get to that. The reality is, like, you've been running your business for a while, things never slow down. There will always be something to do, some kind of fire to put out, something to navigate. So the reality is things won't actually slow down until you design the space for strategic thinking and for things to slow down. So like I said, your best thinking doesn't happen between meetings. Like it happens when you've actually blocked out that time in your calendar, protected it, phones off, Slack, WhatsApp, emails are all turned off, no phone, no interruptions, just you and that time uninterrupted to focus on big picture. So if everything in your business still runs through you, I want you to ask yourself this question: have you actually built a team? Have you actually built support people around you? Or have you just got a whole bunch of people depending on you for answers? Because the goal in business is not to work harder inside your business. The goal is to design your weeks and a business that lets you work on the business, not in it. So the third thing I want to talk to you about is how to actually map out your ideal week and how to actually lock in the big rocks first. So this is the practical piece. Like, this is the bit that I want you to pause the episode, take action on, absorb and do. Like, we're going to talk through in a second, like how to actually design out like a weekly rhythm that is for you, that works for you, and actually creates momentum, a sense of calm in your weeks, and you building momentum, that consistent progress, without adding more stress to your plate. So like go back over this a couple of times, pause it, rewatch it. So let's talk about your ideal week. Like, I want you to start with, and every business is different, but I'll talk through some of the big elements in a second, but I want you to start with your buckets. So your buckets of time. Most consultancy owners have like roughly the same categories of work that, if they cover each week, is going to move the business forward. Like, you've got big picture thinking, so strategic time to think about big picture and where it's going, reviewing your business plan, looking at your 90-day plan, 5-year strategic plan, that sort of stuff. Everyone needs to carve out time for business development. So moving opportunities forward, calling clients, looking at your pipeline, where things are going and who do you need to chat to next to bring work forward. Team leadership, so moving the team forward, upskilling, upgrading the team. Then you've got things like project review, so reviewing obviously the stuff that's going out of the office that week, and a little bit of admin time. We've talked about this in other episodes about getting a VA or getting some admin support for you. But the reality is most business owners have a little bit of admin time. So they're like the big main buckets. So big picture thinking, strategic time, BD, team leadership, moving the team forward, project review, and then some admin stuff. Then you want to ask yourself, like, do I actually have dedicated time each week to move those buckets forward? Or at the moment, am I just trying to squeeze those buckets in around other things? Or are some buckets that I want to have more time for being taken up with other buckets that are just, overcrowding it? The big one is project admin, project review, and admin stuff. So most consultancy owners allow those kind of 2 or 3 categories to take up their entire week and leaving very little time for big picture thinking, business development, that sort of stuff. So yeah, I want you to think about your buckets first. Then I want you to think about you. What's an ideal design for your week? Like if you're a morning person, like if you're clearest in the morning, and most people are, we want to map out our week so that our mornings, it doesn't have to be every morning of the week, but it could be 3 mornings a week or 2 mornings of the week. Those morning buckets should be protected, or those time blocks should be protected for high value, high focused work. So most consultancy owners just turn up to work, open up their emails, and they just start working. I want you to be different. I want you to have a locked in schedule for your week, and it can fluctuate a bit. I want you to get to the office on a Tuesday and Thursday, and you know that that's your strategic big picture time. Strategic BD planning. If you go into the office that you're just going to get overrun with team questions, either don't go into the office, or, and I'll talk about this in a second, share this with your team once you've mapped out your ideal week, and just go, team, this is my ideal week. You should encourage your team to do that too. I'm not going to be available for team questions on Tuesdays and Thursdays mornings, but you'll see here in the calendar that afternoons are available for team time and that sort of stuff. So set boundaries with your team as well. Mornings blocked out for big picture stuff, and then afternoons when you're a bit more fatigued, that's kind of better for team meetings because you can bounce off others with the energy. You can do check-ins with staff. You can do project reviews if you want, but don't waste your best hours on low value tasks. So get a piece of paper out, Monday to Friday on it, morning and afternoon, and just start to map out your ideal week. Big rocks go in first. They're like the non-negotiables. They're the weekly things that that if you do every single week, you're going to move your business forward. So block them out. The weekly things that move your business forward. And look, you don't want to have an entirely full week. You want some space, but you want to make sure that your ideal week has all of those big buckets in it. And then, like I said, send that to your team and go, team, this is my ideal week. Mondays are this time, Monday afternoons are X time, all that sort of thing, and communicate to the team so that they know when you're available, or if you're out of the office, what you're actually up to. So when you block out that time, it means that you get to the end of the week, and if you've been true to the calendar, and I know sometimes stuff has to move, but like if you get 8 out of 10 with this, you're going to be golden, because you get to the end of the week and you know that you've moved forward strategic stuff, you've moved forward BD, you've talked to some clients, you've had a chat with some of your team about their career progression, you've moved some project forwards, and you get to 4 o'clock on a Friday and you feel actually good about your week, not shitty, and you're actually setting a standard for how you want to operate as a leader in your business. All right, so action plan. So if you're ready to stop just surviving the week and actually start driving your week forward, action plan is block out 1 hour this week, just one, and use it to map out your ideal week. Work out all your big rocks, your buckets, all those sorts of things, your thinking time, get it all into your calendar, actually block out the time actually physically in your calendars, which means people can't block appointments over the top of it. Like I said, communicate it to your team, and then as of next week, you start running your business in accordance with that calendar. That's how it starts. 1 hour this week, map out your ideal week, comms it to your team, and then next week you actually start living by it. Right, so I want to share with you like a quick win or a quick story about one of our boardroom members, purely because it's a perfect example of exactly what we've been talking about today in this podcast. So Drew, an incredible person, he came into Boardroom, solid business, like good team, good work coming through the door, had a couple of shareholders in the business, and the business was growing. But like a lot of consultancy owners at that stage, his weeks were chockers, like so full, I'm not even kidding. Reactive, pulled in 10 different directions all at once, and just that strategic stuff kept getting pushed. A whole bunch of reasons why, but the strategic stuff just kept getting pushed. So, first when he sort of joined Boardroom, one of the things he or Drew committed to doing was, and it sounds simple, but simple is effective, and simple, sometimes people don't do it. He just blocked out Mondays for strategy. He didn't block out Monday morning, he blocked out all of Monday. So a full day, Mondays were his day, in the calendar, protected, communicated to the team, no project work, no client calls, no internal distractions. Mondays became his time to work on the business, to look at the pipeline, to review where the business was going, and make decisions about big picture stuff that actually moved the business forward. And what that did was, it changed the whole shape of his week. So instead of arriving on Monday morning after a refreshing weekend and just immediately getting pulled back into the day-to-day grind, Drew arrived Monday, excited and energized because he knew Mondays were his strategic time, clear, intentional, and because that time was blocked out, it wasn't something that he had to push stuff around to find it. Just he knew when he turned up on Monday mornings, Monday was completely clear for him to focus on big picture. And so the result was, Drew just stopped becoming the bottleneck in his business, and the business actually grew faster because his team knew that Mondays were Drew's day for strategic direction. They stopped looking for him on Mondays. They knew he wasn't available. They actually stepped up. They started taking on more things in the business. They started doing more things themselves. And Drew went from, running the business day to day to actually leading it. And so that's the power of this. This is not some fluffy buzz thing that I'm talking about. It doesn't take a massive overhaul to start doing it, but it starts with one decision to protect your time and then actually doing it. And if Drew can do it, so can you. Okay, so let's land this plane. If there's one thing that I want you to take away from this episode, it's this. Motivation comes and goes, but a weekly rhythm doesn't. So stop waiting for a quieter week or when things calm down to do the bigger picture stuff. Design your week that makes it all happen. Identify your big rocks, identify your buckets, know your best thinking time, and block out that time each week before something else fills it, and protect your time like your life depends on it. And if you want to go deeper on this, if you want a step-by-step roadmap to building a more profitable, more efficient consultancy that grows consistently, gives you the time and the freedom that you got into this business for, check out our 10 million plus consultancy roadmap training below this episode. So, it doesn't matter if you're at 1 million, 3 or 5, or pushing past 10, there's a clear path forward in this training, and this training will show you exactly what that looks like. So the link below to that video or to that training is below this episode. So thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next one.